Then I didn't answer right away. The Uber slowed in front of the old brick hospital, the same place where Grandpa had worked for almost 30 years before retiring. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, probably wondering why an old man and a young woman were sitting in silence while a question hung in the air like smoke. I finally said softly, "Grandpa, the SUV is gone." He turned to me, his thick white eyebrows drawing together. "Gone? What do you mean gone? I gave you that car so you wouldn't have to struggle. It was brand new, safe, strong. You loved it." I smiled, but my eyes burned. I did love it, I still do, but sometimes things we love have to be let go for reasons we don't expect. The Uber stopped. The driver announced our arrival, and Grandpa slowly opened the door. His knees weren't what they used to be. I held his arm as he stepped out, and together we walked toward the hospital entrance, the automatic doors sliding open with a familiar hiss. He kept looking at me, confused, hurt, maybe even a little betrayed. Inside, the smell of disinfectant and coffee from the corner cafe mixed in the air. Grandpa paused, staring at the hallway that led to the cardiology ward. "Why did you bring me here?" he asked. I took a deep breath, because the answer to your question is here. 3 years earlier, when Grandpa surprised me with the SUV, it had felt like a dream. I had just graduated from university. Jobs were scarce, my savings were thin, and I was taking buses for hours to attend interviews. One afternoon, Grandpa called me to his house. "Come quickly," he said, his voice mysterious. "I have something to show you." When I arrived, he was standing in the driveway with a big smile, leaning on his cane. Beside him was a shining silver SUV, its ribbon fluttering in the breeze. "For you," he said proudly, "so my granddaughter never has to stand in the sun waiting for a bus again." I had burst into tears. "Grandpa, this is too much, I can't accept this." He shook his head. "You can and you will. I worked my whole life to take care of my family. Now it's my turn to make your road easier." That SUV became my freedom. I drove to interviews, helped my mother with groceries, took Grandpa to his checkups, and even picked up my little cousins from school. It wasn't just a car, it was a symbol of love, sacrifice, and protection. But life, as it often does, had other plans. One rainy evening, I was driving home from work when a speeding truck ran a red light. I still remember the blinding headlights, the screech of brakes, and the sound of metal folding like paper. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. My arm was in a cast, my head was bandaged, and my mother was crying beside the bed. The doctor told us I was lucky to be alive. The SUV was not. It had taken the full impact. The front was completely crushed. The insurance company later said the structure of the car had saved my life. When Grandpa came to see me, he tried to smile, but his eyes were wet. "The car did its job," he said quietly. "It protected you, that's all I ever wanted from it." I thought that was the end of the story. I was wrong. A few months later, Grandpa's health began to decline. His heart, which had carried him through decades of hard work and responsibility, started to weaken. Hospital visits became frequent. Medicines piled up on the kitchen table. The strong man who once lifted me on his shoulders now needed help just to climb stairs. One day, his doctor pulled me aside. "Your grandfather needs a procedure. It's expensive and the waiting list is long. If it's delayed, the risk increases." I went home and cried that night. We had some savings, but not enough. My parents were already struggling. Loans would take time we didn't have. And then I remembered the insurance money. The SUV had been fully insured. The compensation was sitting in my account untouched. It was meant for a new car. I looked at that number on the screen for a long time. A car or my grandpa's heart? The choice didn't feel like a choice at all. I paid for the procedure. I never told Grandpa. When he asked why I hadn't bought another car yet, I laughed and said, "I'm thinking, maybe later." Later never came. His surgery was successful. His color returned. His smile came back. He started walking again in the park slowly with his cane, greeting old friends and feeding pigeons. Every time I saw him laugh, I felt a quiet peace in my chest. And every time I opened a ride app on my phone and ordered an Uber, I felt something else too, gratitude mixed with a secret. Back in the hospital corridor, Grandpa leaned against the wall, breathing slowly. "So," he said, "why is the answer to my car question here?" I guided him to a bench and sat beside him. Do you remember your surgery? I asked. Of course, he said. The doctors said it was a miracle how quickly everything was arranged. I nodded. Do you remember asking me how we managed it so fast? Yes, you said Ala made a way. He did, I whispered, but he used something to make that way. I looked into his eyes. Grandpa, the insurance money from the SUV paid for your treatment. For a moment he didn't speak. The hallway noise seemed to fade away. His lips trembled. You sold the car. It was already gone, I said gently, but what it gave us saved you. Tears filled his eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you would feel guilty, I said, and because you once told me your job was to protect me. This time it was my turn to protect you. He covered his face with his hands and cried quietly. After a long moment he took my hand in his. His grip was weak but warm. That SUV, I bought it so you could live your life without fear, and it did exactly that even after it was destroyed. It saved you in the accident and it saved me after. He smiled through his tears. What a blessed piece of metal. I laughed softly. So you're not angry that I take Uber now? He shook his head. No, I'm proud that the girl I once carried on my shoulders now carries me in her heart. We sat there for a while in silence, the kind that is full instead of empty. Finally, Grandpa said, one day you will have another SUV, maybe an even better one, but remember, the greatest vehicle in life is sacrifice. It takes you places no car ever can. I squeezed his hand, and the best driver. He looked at me with a twinkle in his eye. Love. When we called another Uber to go home, Grandpa walked a little taller. And as the car pulled away from the hospital, he leaned back and whispered, Where's the SUV we gave you? It's right here beating in my chest.